Good morning. I am Don Sanderson. I'm the lead pastor at Vista Assembly of God in Vista, but I'm also a recruit of Bob Tritsch's. I know him as Gunny. Matter of fact, our platoon was the one where he transitioned from staff sergeant to Gunny on our squad bay. And over the years, I had looked for him, and then social media turned the world into a neighborhood. And I reached out, and I found a page with this guy with this big honking mustache. And I thought, I can't tell if that's Gunny or not. So I sent him a message. And what I could tell is he wasn't very active. And so about 4 days later, all I said in my message is, "This you?" And I sent him a picture of his from our recruit album. And he goes, "Yep." That was his response. "Yep." And I said, "I was in one of your platoons." And so we traded phone numbers. And a few weeks later, we met for lunch. And we shared some stories of where life has taken us over the last 42 years. And I said to my wife, I said, "Well, we're not as lean, but we still have some meanness left in us." And it was a privilege to sit with him. And so with Gunny being the influence that he was, I was just telling Bob, when I came to Marine Corps boot camp, I was already broken. I went to seminary right out of high school and couldn't afford to stay, and so I had to drop out financially. The economy was in a bad way, so there were no jobs to be had, and my car broke down in front of the Marine Corps recruiting office. And the rest is history. I came to MCRD San Diego broken and feeling like a failure because I wasn't where I was supposed to be in seminary. In first phase, they reiterated how broken I was. But in second phase, Gunny and the drill instructors got a hold of us and began to build us up. And I shared yesterday just briefly that Gunny, when they called us Marines and walked across the parade deck, he shook our hands and he said, "Welcome, Marine." It was instrumental, but you hear those emotional stories that build you up, but there's some funny things that happen too. Gunny, when I posted on Marines Find Your Platoon about Gunny's passing, in 48 hours there were 2,200 responses or interactions with the post and 649 comments. Many of them were well wishes and prayers for Kathy and the family, but there were also stories that recruits, other guys that had Gunny, and I just want to share a couple of my moments, and then I'm going to pray. And then we're going to allow others to speak. And so 3 stories come to mind. They're brief. The first took place when we were in second phase up at Camp Pendleton in the field training part of we were marching, humping all of these different classes. And because I was shorter, I was toward the back of our platoon. And we had what we called a kill hat. His name was Staff Sergeant Poe. Yes, I remember all of their names. I remember their faces. And Staff Sergeant Poe goes, "Private Sanderson, fall out." And we're marching with full pack and rifles. And he says, "Run to the front of formation and ask Gunny what time it is." So with my backpack and my weapon, I run to the front, and I'm hustling, try to keep up. I get to the front and go through the whole ordeal. And those of you who served back in the 80s, you understand the protocols we had to go through. Yep. "Sir, Private Sanderson requests permission to speak to Senior Drill Instructor Gunnery Sergeant Tritsch." "Sir!" "Speak, Private." "Sir, Drill Instructor Staff Sergeant Poe wants to know what time it is, sir." Gunny looks at his watch, because they wore him upside down, and he says, "It's 7:58 in the morning." "Sir, yes, sir." And I turn around and I run back to Staff Sergeant Poe. "Sir, Private Sanderson requests permission to speak." Go through the whole ordeal again. Staff Sergeant Poe says, "Speak." I said, "Senior Drill Instructor says it's 7:58 a.m., sir." He goes, "Run back and tell the Gunny his watch is 3 minutes slow." So I run back, go through the whole ordeal. And those of you that know, I will never forget his face then, and I realized sitting at lunch with him that day, he still had the same smirk / smile. You didn't know if he was pleased with you as a recruit or if you were about to die. And so when I go through the whole ordeal and I tell him what Staff Sergeant Poe says, he goes, "Get back in formation." That was it. So I had to run back to the back of formation and continue the march. And then the Sunday before graduation was our last chapel service, and I was preparing for ministry, and so I tried to be involved as much as I could. Sunday before graduation, we're putting on our bravos and our tie and our tie clasp, and Gunny walks out of the duty hut. He goes, "Where are you going?" I said, "Sir, the private is singing at chapel service this morning." He goes, "You can sing?" "Sir, yes, sir." "I don't believe it." And he says, "Get up here and sing," and made me stand up on my footlocker. And I said, "Sir, what is the private supposed to sing, sir?" He said, "The Marine Corps hymn. What else?" And so I stood and blurted out the first verse of the Marine Corps hymn. Then he goes, "I guess you can sing. Get out of here." And that, the various things that we had with him. And I prepared a booklet of all the guys who commented on Gunny's post and had stories to tell. And I sent some copies to you, and so that you'll have them for family and friends. These are all Marines telling their stories. Bob was a father to us, and most of us came to boot camp the way I was. We were without direction, some without hope. Matter of fact, there was at one point where they said, "How many of you were here because the judge made you come?" It was either come in the Marine Corps or go to jail. And there were 5 guys in our platoon that their option was the Marine Corps or jail. And Gunny and the other drill instructors really spoke life over us. And I shared this with Kathy. According to Marine Corps tradition, when Bob breathed his last, he reported to a new duty station to guard the gates of heaven. But according to our faith and our theology, when Bob exhaled here on this earth, he inhaled in heaven, and he is now in the presence of Jesus. And that was the amazing thing for that 2-hour lunch that I had with him. He talked about his faith. He talked about his God and his family. And I'm going to leave you with this verse, and then I'm going to step away and let everyone else speak. John chapter 14, Jesus is getting ready to die. He's within hours of being arrested, beaten, crucified. And he says to his disciples, "Let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you." And he said this, "I go away to prepare a place for you. And if I go away, I will receive you. I will come again and receive you to myself." That is the hope that we have, that I know that Bob has. And I am grateful that just for those 3 months, he was my drill instructor. And I'm grateful that he's forever my friend. Amen. Father, thank you for these families and friends. Now be with us as we share stories. Above all, be glorified in everything we say and do. In Christ's name, amen. 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 I believe that Perry Blevins is coming to share his story.
Well, good morning and welcome. Bob would be pleased. He, I'm sure, recognizes every single one of you and has a thought for every one of you and all the things that you've done with him. And so he's got a big smile on his face. And I know this is a celebration for Bob and obviously a celebration for the Marine Corps, but I'm Navy. I just wanted to throw that out there. And Pastor Don speaks of several things, military for one, and I would like to speak a little bit on his faith. I've known him since 6th grade, between 6th and 7th grade. So we basically grew up together, and I've known his faith in a different way. And I thought this might be appropriate if I read this. And it's, I think, Bob telling you all his point of view. and it's basically the passing of life. The time has come for me to pass this life. This world for me and the earthly breath of life is no more. The duties that life shares, the struggles, the living in the world that does not embrace our Lord will be remembered no more. They have passed away. No more waiting for my victory. It is now. This is now the time of my birth, to breathe the eternal breath of life and light. The dim, cold light of this world has passed away with no memory or the need of worldly breath. No sadness, no hurt. The loss of loved ones are now united together with me. Mortal life, there is no memory. I am wrapped with a new body, and my heart, my mind, and my eyes are consumed by amazing beauty. Heaven is everywhere in my eyes. They are filled with love. I am consumed by its fullness. I am surrounded by the minds of heaven, generations of families. Excitement is all around me. The waiting is over. I am a citizen of heaven with all of the saints. Bob, I think, wanted you to know that. Thank you.
Okay, guys. I'm having a bad adrenaline rush, so to get through this, if you're able to, could we all stand up and we're gonna get the jitters out right now so I can get through this together. Everybody stand up. And just shake out whatever feels natural, just like down below. Okay, today is a happy day. Happy day. Happy day. Happy day. For those of you that don't know me, I'm actually one of our head trainers at my work. But this speech is not a reflection on my capabilities, so yes. And in case there's any confusion, these hats were made at my dad's 70th birthday party. We went to Las Vegas to go to a Raiders game because that's what he wanted to do. And there was probably 8 or 10 of us that were all wearing Bob's daughter, Bob's brother, Bob's friend, Bob's son-in-law, Bob's wife, and Bob, right? So I just thought that was fitting. So my dad passed May 12th, and I wanted to honor him and his legacy and be able to speak to you guys today because I knew there was going to be a celebration of life. So for the last few weeks, I'd be chatting with my dad and just ask him, hey, what should I say? Like, what should be the message from you and me as the daughter? Because we kind of did our own thing anyway. We're a little more quiet about it. So he just gave me all these wonderful things to say. Old stuff, new stuff that recently happened in the year, and true to me and my dad, I left my journal of the notes back in Denver, so that's fun. So I quickly wrote this the other day because I said, Dad, should we just kind of wing it and just see what happens? And he said, yeah. So I guess the thing I kind of wanted to communicate with you guys today is just when I think of my dad and the legacy to carry forward. So when you guys are in that kind of headspace and thinking of my dad, maybe you can think of some of these things and, remember him that way. So 3 things stand out for what my dad meant to me. I'm good, I can do this. He was down for anything, and I think that was so cool. He was one of those guys that didn't even try to be cool, and he just was. Like, we went to Australia, and it was such a kick-ass trip, and it was just, let's go wherever, let's go down this road, let's hike Heart Attack Hill. Me right out of college and my dad maybe not training for a heart attack hill, but he's like, all right, we'll figure this out later, or going on like these really long bike rides. And he just was like, okay, that's fine, which I'm sure he was just like, are you trying to kill me early? But that's the kind of guy he was. He's just like, let's just do it. I remember a boyfriend and I broke up right before this Breckenridge trip, and he's like, I'll go with you, that's fine. And we jumped in a frozen lake because, why not? Let's just see how that feels and what happens. I'm like, okay, let's go. So just all those different things, and I had more examples, but they're back in Denver, of just like how down he was for anything, whether he was ready or not. He just said, okay, let's try it. And I just always thought that was so cool about my dad, because I have a tendency to overthink things, or just like, okay, well, what's the best case scenario? And he's just like, just get rid of all that fluff, it's fine. That's one thing I loved about him. Another thing was he just wanted people to get along. And that was so special about my dad, and he was so quiet about it, and he would never boast or brag about what he did, but I'm sure he touched each of you different ways in the hopes that there was some niceness or happiness or just some sort of connection. I don't know how to explain that in words, because I'm also a numbers person, so it's hard to express my feelings in these words. But I just know he wanted you all to know that whether he knocked it out of the park or just did a little inch forward, he just hoped that everyone gets along, and he did the best he could with the tools he had to make that happen for each and every one of you. And then this one, I hope you guys all experienced it to a certain degree. It's just like quiet love, It wasn't in your face, it wasn't flashy, but he was the guy that would drive halfway to meet me at a coffee shop to play cribbage for hours. And I thought that was so cool, because, he's Mr. Don't keep the lights on, don't turn on the AC, but I'll waste some gas just to drive halfway and go do that and play cribbage. And what's awesome is I think if we took all the cribbage games we played, I came out as winner. And Dad, speak now or forever hold your peace if you disagree with me on that. But yeah, I think I won overall, so that was awesome. He might recall something different, but sometimes he lies. But yeah, there's just so many different things that I didn't know what to share, so I just wanted to make it short. Also, because I'm having troubles breathing. So yeah, it just, if you have a moment later today or next week or next month, if you have that opportunity to just, do something for no reason, whether it seems rational, irrational, just be like, I'm going to be down for anything today, this moment, because that's what Bob would do. That feels weird calling him Bob because he's my dad. I'm going to say dad. Or if there's a moment where you can just choose to get along with someone, whether you're right or wrong, they're right, they're wrong, just get away of all that noise and fastness of just what's the real outcome. I just, him to his core, he just was like, I wish people could just get along with each other, better and in the best sense. Because he loved peace, and I think that's part of his quietness, just that's who he was. Yeah. So he wasn't a man of many words, but what he chose what to say mattered. What he chose not to say mattered. And when he did show up, whether it was loud or quiet, and whether it was, graceful or not, it was just him saying, hey, I'm here for you guys. So I hope you guys get to feel that, or you felt that, and get to remember that for him. Because that was mattered to me with him. And I hope I see him everywhere. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.
All right, good morning, everybody. For those that don't know me, my name is Stan Foraker. I'm a friend of Kathy and Bob's. It's a very privilege, thank you, to be here. So it was recommended to me that I take notes on thoughts so that I would know what to say when I got up here. So just to give you a heads up, I took some notes. We're gonna be here a while, so if you need to use the restroom or whatever, now's the time to do it. Okay, so I was looking at the timeline and I really couldn't remember exactly when we met. I remember how we met, but I was in Golf 27, Golf Company, 2nd Battalion, 7th Marines. That's a rifle company that basically trains for combat. From February of 85 to July of 87. And during that time, Gunnery Sergeant Tritsch was my company gunny. Didn't really mean much at the time until I was chosen to become the company police sergeant and the company Jeep driver, which for a Lance Corporal was a pretty cool job. You got to drive the Jeep, which was really neat. And then, of course, you worked for the company gunny, basically a gopher, do whatever, run errands, whatever he needed. And Gunny Tritsch was a super nice guy, probably one of the nicest gunnery sergeants I had ever met. And at some point, like I said, I don't remember the timeline, but at some point he approached me and asked me if I wanted to come to his house and help him build a patio cover and how much I would want, how much I would charge, what my time was worth. And I really didn't know what my time was worth. I had never built anything before in my entire life. But it did strike me that it was an opportunity to get out of the barracks and away from the base. So I said, well, I don't really need to get paid, but I wouldn't mind a home-cooked meal. Does Kathy cook? He says, oh yeah, she cooks. And it turns out Kathy is an awesome cook too. So we came, I don't remember the exact agreement. I think he might have given me some gas money at the end of the day. I don't really remember now, but I ended up going down to his house and we built a patio cover, and I think it was 2 weekends worth. And I basically spent full days. In fact, I got to meet the girls. They were yay tall then. And it was just a really nice place to be, very welcoming. In fact, I ended up going down there, I forget how many weekends spread over a period of time, to where I ended up spending the night, and Kathy put up a cot in her sewing room. Kathy had a sewing room. The room was just loaded with material and stuff for sewing. And right in the 5 feet worth of floor that existed in the room, she put up a cot for me, and I spent the night down there. And that's how the friendship built. And then I moved on, I got orders out, and I left, was gone for 2 years, and I believe I wrote a letter or two. But when I came back, as soon as I flew into San Diego, Bob and Kathy as soon as I picked up my pickup truck, which was in storage in San Diego, they were the first people I went to go visit. And the friendship just blossomed from there. It's a very unique friendship. Gunnery sergeants don't generally become friends with Lance Corporals. I think I was 19 or 20 at the time. That's usually something that doesn't take place. And it's the only friendship like that I've ever had while I was a Marine. Bob was the best friend. I can count on one hand how many friends I made in the Marine Corps. And Bob was one of them. Let's see, what else do I have here? I was a bit of a jokester back then. I like to crack jokes and say stupid things, mostly for shock value. So I was really surprised. Looking back, at the time I didn't think anything of it, but looking back, I'm really surprised Kathy allowed me into her home. I got to play with the girls when I was down there. I was willing to do anything and everything because it got me out of the barracks. And I was in a really neat place. It was a really neat home to be in. And I remember playing dress up with Melinda. In fact, there was one time when she painted my nails. And back then, we had the don't ask, don't tell policy in the military. So as I'm driving up Interstate 5, I'm scraping fingernail polish off my nails, hoping to get it all taken care of before I got to the gate. It was just an awesome place to be. After I got out of the Marine Corps, our friendship, we maintained a friendship. Bob and Kathy got to meet Marta when we were dating. And I was trying to think, outside of having a unique friendship and Bob being a best friend, what impact did he have on my life? So when I told Bob and Kathy that Marta and I were going to get married, we were down there visiting, and Bob literally pulled me off to the side out into the driveway and questioned my decision for getting married. And at the time, I didn't think anything of it, but shortly after that, I remember thinking to myself, the only person that cared what I was doing with my life was Bob. My family, no one in my family asked me about it. Basically what Bob did was he made me second guess and think about a life-changing decision that I was entering into. And I appreciated that. It took a while for the appreciation to set in, but it set in. And then we hung out at the, Mark and I became members of the Antique Gas and Steam Engine Museum in Vista, California. I don't know how many of you are familiar with that. Antique tractors is a thing, and Bob would come up and we camped out there. It was usually 2 weekends. Bob would come up for one weekend, and we set up the camping trailer, had food and barbecue and everything, and Bob would come up Friday evening and stay until Sunday afternoon. And that was always a neat opportunity to spend time. And then the Midway Museum, when I became a member of the Midway Museum as a volunteer, I was talking to Bob about, I was trying to recruit him, get him down there. I believe Bob's first duty station was the Marine Detachment aboard the USS Ranger, where he served a tour of duty off the coast of Vietnam when he was a young Marine. And I had served with the Marine Detachment aboard the Midway, which is now a museum here in San Diego. So bringing him down there, giving him a tour and talking about the good old days as young Marines serving on an aircraft carrier, his experience versus my experience and things of that nature, I convinced him to volunteer down there. And I thought that he would volunteer and work with me in Ship's Restoration Department. We tear stuff up, we restore stuff, clean and paint, things like that, behind the scenes. But he was a little smarter than me. He went with Safety Department and worked with them. And it was always really neat to be down there on a Saturday when Bob was on board, because generally he would come looking for me, I would go looking for him. At some point we would find each other. Communication on the ship is pretty sketchy. But then we'd have lunch together, and that was always a nice time. So I just want to say thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. My name is Steve Stone. I am part of the Gage Elementary group of parents. We all met there. I'm part of the husband group. While Kathy was president of the PTA, and the other ladies were either involved in the PTA or the foundation, we men went to a secret meeting, and we learned the phrase that every woman loves. Yes, dear. Halloween happenings, jogathons, tables needed to be carried, everything needed to be schlepped around. We were always there. And Bob was always in the thick of it when he wasn't fostering new recruits. And please forgive me, I was in the Coast Guard. I really didn't know much about Marines other than to stay away from them. So, and I didn't know Bob was a senior drill instructor, which reminds me of the old adage that what's the difference between God and a senior drill instructor? God does not think he's a senior drill instructor. So Bob is, if you know Bob, Bob's a man of a few words, and but we got to know each other very well over the years. Super Bowl Sundays at the Trisch's house, where we all gambled illegally over who's going to be the next commercial and things like that. We spent a few Thanksgiving together nicely with the Tritches because our boys were grown and gone, and Christmases, and just a wonderful time. Kathy invited Susie and I to go with them at Christmas time And Kathy, remind me when you light the candles, what's that called? Oh, the Luminari. Luminari, to go to Luminari. So I show up with Susie at a Luminari, and there's a guy in a Santa Claus suit. And I'm thinking, well, I knew it was Bob, but I'm thinking that is just the total opposite of a Marine Corps gunnery sergeant. But Bob could play those roles. He was amazing. We walked with Bob around the neighborhood and handing out candy to the kids, and all this time I'm thinking, it's a gunnery sergeant doing that. That's pretty cool. Later on, I knew Bob had volunteered at the Midway, the Patriot Riders, that if you were at the ceremony yesterday, you saw that great presentation by them. And by that time, I had retired and was involved with the Highway Patrol Senior Volunteer Program. And so one day over dinner at the Tritsch's house, I said, Bob, you ever interested in maybe volunteering with us out there? And I explained to him what we did. And, Bob's not a guy like Christina says. He goes, yeah, I'd like to do that. So a few weeks later, he gets accepted. He goes through the background package for the Highway Patrol, is accepted, and gets out on the road. And if you don't know anything about senior volunteers, and my friends back there in the uniforms, thank you guys for showing up today. It means a lot to me. The toughest thing to do as a senior volunteer, or even as in law enforcement, is to pick up that radio and actually say something over the police radio. Because number one, cops are very judgmental. Number two, it's the most listened to radio in the world is a police radio. And Bob, after a few times, got it like that. Fit in like a glove, directing traffic at parades, riding around doing the things that we do, school safety patrols in the unincorporated areas out in El Cajon, dealing with the kids out there, getting saluted as you drive by, which Bob is used to. He did an absolutely fantastic job. So, Kathy, I'll continue on, but Kathy, I have something for you from the Highway Patrol and us, and I'd like to give this to you, and it reads, in honor of Robert L. Tritsch, Senior Volunteer, California Highway Patrol, end of watch, May 12th, 2025. So I'd like to give that to you. Winston Churchill said, what's attributed to him, that and it was attributed to reserve military, but also volunteers. To be a reserve, to be a volunteer is to be twice a citizen. And that sums up Bob. So Kathy, Christina, Melinda, family, I know in your quiet moments when you think about Bob, please remember Bob's life was really a life well lived, truly. So thank you very much.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Is this being recorded?
Yeah.
I am Kathy's favorite cousin. Of the Lubeck family. Bob, I swear to God, I will never forget your warm welcomes, lifting me off my feet with a great, big, huge bear hug. I'll surely miss that. With your continuous love, generosity, and caring spirit, I felt completely at home whenever we stayed with you and Kathy. I don't think you know this, but it never went unnoticed that you took the time to buy your own grab bag gifts at Christmas. The one I'll never forget is the Marine Mini air horn for our cars. I still haven't used it, thank God. But every time I see it, I think of your thoughtful heart, always taking care of others, and your love for very loud safety measures. But the one that really surprised me was the gift that would melt away your daily stresses and frustrations with Wally's handcrafted ear candles. They were the perfect way to bring a sense of calm after a stressful day. How namaste of you, Bob. I'm trying to picture you doing that after a long day riding on your beloved Harley Davidson. Indian motorcycle. Speaking of the Indian motorcycle, I'm so glad I got to ride with you just once, because that daring side of me has since gone into retirement. You knew how much Dave and I loved staying in the trailer on your driveway. And even though we witnessed the pain you were in, the last time we saw you, you still insisted on setting it up for us with very little help. I loved that you always made sure to have those special burgers from the butcher just for me. Nobody made a burger like you on the grill, Bob. My mouth is just watering thinking about it. If you could have a few of those ready for me when it's my turn to join you, I would surely appreciate it. What? I may not be up there with you? Very funny. I may be putting out a few fires for you when I arrive. Boy, how we loved to razz. And speaking of razzing, you were my fierce card buddy and partner. You didn't say much, but when it was every man for himself, I'd look across the table and see that sly twinkle in your eye, that silent little smirk, having something up your sleeve, and I knew I was doomed. We would laugh and sigh, knowing it was all over for us when somehow you'd managed to win the game. Now, I don't know why, but for some reason, I couldn't figure out the water and ice thing on your refrigerator. And on every visit, without fail, I'd leave a little puddle on the kitchen floor. I knew it drove you crazy, and I'd quickly clean it up. Out of the corner of my eye, I'd see you sigh, keeping your annoyance to yourself. Thank you, Bob. But truly, what means the world to me is how deeply and lovingly you cared for my dearest cousin, Kathy, and for your whole family. You were a rock, sturdy, dependable, solid. I salute you, Marine Bob, for your service, your love, and for making my life richer just by you being in it. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Kathy. When did you get here? So my name is Mark Passmore. Nancy and I met with that infamous Gage group. Our children were in kindergarten together. How many years ago? Oh, don't age me. It was a long time ago. We all met because our kids were in, there's another one back there, there's a couple of them. They all met in kindergarten, and so the parents began to do things together, and it was fun. But Bob was, at that time, Big Bob. Big, quiet, a Marine. He was intimidating. But then you got to know him. He was one of the greatest guys you could ever meet. He had a funny little giggle when he laughed. He was Santa Claus, by God. How could you not like that? But you asked us to wear red, white, and blue. Yeah. I'm here to tell you, this was not his favorite color. His favorite colors were silver and black. He was a Raider fan. Oakland Raiders, Los Angeles Raiders, Las Vegas Raiders, Ballinger Raiders. Well, so we were Charger fans. So when we found that out, this little rivalry started, and we would watch the games twice a year together. And then the pranks started. So some of Bob's pranks were, you guys went to Hawaii, I believe. You came back, you gave us a gift. Fortune cookies. The fortune cookies. So the next night we have dinner, we open the fortune cookies. First one is, your daughter will marry a Raider quarterback. Second one, your daughter will marry a Raider quarterback. Okay, I see where this is going. So after that, just so you know, our daughter was not allowed to watch Raider football ever again. And by the way, our daughter married a retired Marine. So there you go. Okay, so another prank Bob did, and I'm blaming Bob, not you.
It was all Bob.
They came over to the house to watch the Raiders and the Chargers, and Bob kind of fooled us. He was wearing a Charger t-shirt. He was kind of rooting with us for the Chargers. Then it's the second half, and the Raiders are thoroughly beating us. He goes to the restroom, he changes his clothes, he comes out, he's decked out in Raider gear, and he's prancing around the family room. He's saying, "Go Raiders, we're gonna beat you, we're gonna beat you." Okay, we get it. And we thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. After he left, we go in the bathroom. He had unscrewed the light switch cover. He put on a custom Raider light switch cover. He brought tools, he did it. It's like, whatever, I didn't even think they made that stuff. Okay, so we got him back. 1 year, you might remember this. It wasn't me, because it was against the law, so I won't admit doing it. So I got a notice from the IRS. Hey, you owe us money. I made a mistake on a number, and I really didn't owe him, but I thought, hey, this is good. I had Photoshop on my computer. Changed the name, Robert and Kathleen Tritsch. Ballinger Avenue. X'd out some numbers. You owe us this much money. And if you have any questions, call this number. I did the envelope. I snuck it into their mailbox. Didn't say anything. Well, the third time that I think Kathy called that number, she kept getting the San Diego Charger ticket office. She thought, well, maybe this isn't real. But it couldn't have been me, because there were probably several laws, federal laws, that got broken doing that, so I don't know what happened. But we loved Bob, we loved the great times, and now we'll have some great memories. That's what we have. And in the words of you and Bob, carry on.
And the award for the best remembrance goes to, I'm Mark McCoy. I am a neighbor of Bob's. I lived 20 years here so far, so we moved in about 20 years ago. And I'm also a retired veteran. I did 4 years in the Army and 16 in the Navy, so you can probably figure out which one I like best. So, well, I first met Bob when I was walking around the neighborhood getting acquainted after I moved in. And he was out fiddling around or doing something in his yard, and I stopped to say hi. And, you know, if you know his yard, he's usually got a Marine Corps flag. He's got that big ass yellow sign there. Sorry, I'm swearing like a sailor. That says Marine Corps Liaison. So I asked him, hey, are you a veteran? You know, because I'm just being snarky, right? Because you know, it's a Navy Marine Corps thing. So he knew I was being sarcastic. So our whole relationship started off on sarcasm. So it was really, really funny. One memory I have is that we were at an event on our street in our neighborhood, and in walks Santa. I know somebody already mentioned Santa, but they didn't say how what a perfect Santa he was. I mean, he must have went to Santa's school to be so perfect. He had the tone, he had the body, maybe natural, maybe, I don't know, but he was so engaged, and these children that were at the party were just blown away. I was blown away. So that's one memory I have of Bob. The other memory I have is I was out for a run one day, coming back, walking up the hill, and I see Bob standing there with his motorcycle, and he's huffing and puffing. I guess he's trying to push his motorcycle up the hill. And what he tried to do was he tried to bump start his motorcycle going down. If you ride a motorcycle, you know that you can start if a battery's dead and you got a hill, you can start your motorcycle by going downhill. Well, he was struggling, pushing it up. I asked, "Can I help you?" And he said, "No, I got it." And he was very insistent about doing it himself. So I just started walking slowly behind him. He was going 3 feet at a time. I said, "Look, Bob, I can either help you push this bike up." And by the way, it was not a little small Yamaha. It's this big honking 2,000-pound motorcycle, right? And I said, I can either help you push this up, or I can call 911 when you keel over. So I helped him push it up. The other thing is, as someone else mentioned, was our luminarias, which we had for many years. Hopefully we'll get those back. Kathy and Bob were central to that, and I never seen that when we moved in. It was one of the first things that I saw as far as a neighborhood project or event, and it was just beautiful. People would come over and visit us on Christmas Eve and just say how wonderful that was. It was special not only to our family, but to other people. So I'm wearing a Hawaiian shirt because I know you guys met Kathy in Hawaii. And, I want us to take some time. I know we're here honoring Bob, but I also want to honor Kathy. Your military spouses, there's an ad saying that's the toughest job in the military. And it is, because we go off and you're stuck and you have to handle everything. And we feel helpless, we can't help. You don't even tell us half the things that go on while we're gone. And then when we come back from deployment, you have to manage us. And that's not easy because we're pretty grumpy and we're disagreeable. But I just want you to know how much I appreciate military spouse, having had my own, how much support you gave Bob, and just all the love and support you gave him towards the end. And I really appreciate that. For all you military spouses out there, I just think I want to take a few minutes just to honor Kathy as well. So thank you, because I can't continue. But I just want to say from the neighborhood how special it was having Bob in our lives. Thank you.
Well, hello. My name's Gary. This is Lori. We were neighbors in the 1980s, and we moved away to Alpine, but we still kept in touch with Bob and Kathy. Our oldest daughters, not too old, went to school here together, and that's how and that's how we met Kathy. Well, actually, I met Kathy, and as you may know, she's somewhat friendly, and so from that contact, Lori met her, and we didn't meet Bob right away because he was on deployment, we think. That was our memory. We first met him around Christmas time for the Jesus Christmas party. And he was the innkeeper. And my daughter, Sarah, who's Christina's age, had the memory of him being very gruff because all these little girls would be dressed in their robes, carrying their baby dolls, and they'd ask, "Is there a room at the inn?" "No!" And slam the door.
He was stern.
Gruff is what she said. Knock on the door, they opened up and said, "Room at the inn." "No!" And slam the door again. This is our introduction to Bob. So Anyway, eventually he let them in and they were okay with it. But we've also seen the Santa Claus suit that was mentioned. It's like, yeah, he looks like Santa Claus, very much. Yeah, the Indian bike. We know him a little differently than a lot of people. We weren't in the military. And watching some of the pictures up here before the program began, I think we all know a little bit of a different piece of Bob. And our piece is different from a lot of other pieces because there wasn't a military component. It was just neighbors and friends and games. So we saw a picture of someone up here playing sequence with him. Anybody played sequence with Bob and Kathy? And you know that, yes, he will win. It's a great game. And we purchased one for ourselves. We've played with other friends. We bought the junior edition. We play with our grandkids. So that's something we got from Bob. And he always used to mention how he was undefeated at cribbage. So that was... and then my last thought is you just never know where Bob's going to crop up. Because a week ago today, I was at the Albertsons in Alpine. Long line, slow, got talking to the man in front of me. And blah, blah, blah. And you know how men do. It's like, oh, where do you work? Solar. Do you know Bob Tritsch? Oh, yeah, I heard about that. He was my scheduler. I've worked with him for years. Great guy. Wow. In Alpine, of all places, to bump into this guy who was so familiar with and fondly thought of Bob. And so that was a nice little thing. So you just never know where Bob's going to creep up. Never know.
I've been trying to think of, well, I haven't been trying, it's just been popping into my head, all the things and the times that I spent with Bob and Kathy. And he was just every bit as welcoming as Kathy is, and he can make a cup of coffee. And in the little kitchen back in the day, I'd go over to see Kathy, and he would be making the coffee just the way I like it, super strong. And that was a fond memory, but I wanted you to know how much I loved him for how much he loved you guys. He would do anything for you. And a favorite image in my mind is that first Sunday at Skyline when I never saw this coming, and I looked down the parking lot in front of the sanctuary, and here you come, holding hands together. And just the world to me. That's the time when I was coming out of service and you were going in, and I said, I'm going back in with you. Yes, it was your first visit, and I just have that in my mind, because I know he would do anything for you guys. I think if you asked him to do something for me, he was sure to do it, and he was sure a clever guy. I just remember the time I called you desperately, Kathy, saying, oh my goodness, for vacation Bible study, I need like 100 maracas, and we're gonna wonder if we can make them out of T-ball plastic with skill drilling and dowels, and you go, no problem, Bob can do it. And so the first shipment comes in, and sure enough, he drills those so that they're tight. They need no glue. The preschooler can take it and put it right through, add the rice inside, and make it. And I remember being on that beautiful patio that y'all created out there, and it was just so simple for him to do it so well. And then I called him and said, they need more. And I just know that he would do anything to please you, anything to support you. And he loved you with such a deep, deep love. And I know that I speak for everyone. I will miss him. I'm grateful to God that he made a plan that we can be together again. But he will be missed.
So I was part of the Gauge group, Tisch. I call her Tish, because in 6th grade,
the teacher inadvertently called her Tish, and I thought it was the funniest thing I'd ever heard, that her name could be Tish Trish, and so she became Tish, and my kids know you as Tish, and you're in my phone as Tish, and you will forever be Tish, so that is how I'm going to refer to you. But Tish was my very, very best friend, along with Kristen for many years. And I spent a lot of time at their house growing up. And when you're a kid, it's always nice to have two moms, right? Like I had a second mom in Kathy and these women here, but I mean, I spent so much time at your house, thank you. But it's rare as a little girl that you get a second dad. And I felt like I always had that with Bob. And I spent time with you even when Tish wasn't there. I remember, taking you, driving me places, probably to go get you from something or to go watch you do something, and being in that big green van. And your dad's driving was terrifying at times. And I just have this vision of Kathy sitting there next to him, saying things gently, and then there would always be a Robert. And as a kid, I always appreciated how much he was always there, and he was a man of very few words, but he was always present, and he was always down for anything Tish came up with, which was always something harebrained, and I always appreciated that you had that in your life. But I think the last time I saw you guys, there had been a car accident, and on the side of the road in Navajo, and I was driving my kids somewhere, and I pulled over to see if you guys were okay. And I knew it was you because you were standing there in your square dancing outfits on the side of the road on Navajo in bright plaid blue, the ruffles. And I told Tish when I called her after I heard about her dad passing that I have that vision of the two of you standing there, this big, gruff man who served his country and was a hero to us as little kids, I mean, we knew that he meant business. But seeing him there with you, it struck me as an adult just how much he loved you. And that kind of love is so rare, and what I always would hope to have someday. And I just appreciate so much the presence that you and Bob had throughout my life, and I love you guys dearly, and he was an amazing man, and we're all lucky to have known him.
Good morning. My name is Mike. I'm Kathy's older brother. And listening to everyone speak today really gives a different perspective on Bob. I met him 45 years ago when he married Kathy. And during the time that they were married, my wife and I, we never had the opportunity to live close to them. So our interactions were relatively small little family gatherings, but Kathy had asked me to talk about some of the funny stories, and didn't have a lot of funny stories. Card games were Bob's forte, not mine, and so it wasn't really funny, but he was very good, and just let him kind of, go in his direction. But there were a couple of things that strike me, and people have talked about this, about how Bob was very quiet, a man of few words. And thinking back to a number of family camping events, we'd be sitting around the fire at night and talking, usually about RV batteries or something like that. And all of a sudden, people would notice that Bob wasn't around. And being probably the true Marine, he would have just kind of melded away into the darkness, probably to secure the perimeter, and then all of a sudden kind of make his way back again, and he'd be a part of the conversation. But you never knew that he was gone, or you never knew that he returned. He just wasn't there at times. I was reminded also of a Christmas at our parents' house up in San Jose. And growing up, my sisters had one bedroom, and my brother and I had another bedroom. And typically, and this was BK before kids, for Kathy and Bob, they would get the girls' room. and that had the queen bed, and that's where they would stay. Well, on this particular Christmas visit, my wife and I had flown in from Texas. We got there first, so we took the queen bed in the girls' room, and Bob and Kathy were relegated to the boys' room, which had 2 twin beds. Well, shortly after Christmas, I had to go back to work, so I flew away, and I was told later that the middle of one night, my wife was awakened by somebody crawling into bed with her. And she sat up and said, "Bob?" And very quiet, he never said a word. Very quietly, he started backing out of the bed and then left the bedroom. I also understand that neither one of them came out of their bedrooms for breakfast that morning. So, anyway, that's the story that they tell. I was also told not to tell the story, but you could talk to Kathy about Bob's dedication as a son-in-law to our parents. He did an outstanding job, he and Kathy, in helping them the last few years of their lives. But I was not told to talk about an incident. You can ask Kathy. It involves Bob, my dad, and 3 enemas. But the other thing that has struck me today and yesterday was how many lives Bob touched, and the legacy that he's going to leave in our hearts and in our minds as to just the number of lives that he touched. And Don, I think you briefly talked about the number of responses to a post that you made. Outstanding. Bob was so unassuming, and to see that so many people were touched by him is a testament to him as a man. And I will be forever grateful for having had him as a brother-in-law and shared time with him.
So I have one more little thing about Bob and the pranks. So Mark only told maybe 3 of the pranks, but it went on for years. From stickers, Christmas presents, funny. You even put Raider little Christmas balls all on our trees in the front yard one year. But he would do stickers on our windshield and just all sorts of funny things. So we'd get them back and forth. But the last one was where Mark hid a little Charger football in their house. And it had an alarm on it, and he set the alarm to go off at 7 p.m. every night, but they hid it back up on a shelf behind a frame. So for weeks, Bob and Kathy would be like, "There it is. Do you hear it?" It'd be this little noise. And weeks went by, and finally Bob's like, "It's coming from up there." And they climbed up, and they found it, and it was a Charger football. And so he's tearing it apart, and he finds a little watch. I think he had a little watch in there. And he goes, "Passmores." That was one of my favorite stories.
Kathy asked me to ask this question, again, because of Bob's service, and he was a proud Marine. She wanted us to recognize the service members. So for those service members that are in the audience, would you stand up and allow us non-service people to, past or present, absolutely stand up, and we'd like to acknowledge you. Thank you, and remain standing, because I'd like everybody to stand and show gratitude and appreciation to Bob, to Kathy, and the girls. Okay, thank you very much. I've been told now that we're going to see some videos. The first one is going to be Bob as a dancing Santa or something to do with that, and then Bob Tritsch playing cards. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. If during these videos, where are the cups in? Okay, we're going to pass around cups and have a toast to Bob after playing of the videos.
I Santa, ho, ho, ho.
Ho, ho, ho!
Can you dance over by the tree?
Exhorting. I've restarted the video. Our scorekeeper over here, Mr. Bob, how was your card playing today? Would you rate it on a 1 to 10? How did you do?
Well, I'd say around 8, but my goal was to make sure Joan won.
Oh, you are such a lovely person. Give it up. Merry Christmas, dear.
Does everyone have?
Before we toast, I want to read this poem because everything that I've heard today, this to me summarizes the life of someone that we all know in very different ways and love. It's simply the poem, The Dash. I read of a man who stood to speak at the funeral of a friend. He referred to the dates on the tombstone from the beginning to the end. He noted the first came the date of birth and spoke of the following date with tears. But he said what mattered most of all was the dash between those years. For that dash represents all the time they spent alive on earth, and now only those who love them know what that little line is worth. For it matters not how much we own, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters is how we live and love and how we spend our dash. So think about this long and hard. Are there things you'd like to change? For you never know how much time is left. It can still be rearranged. Bob had an amazing dash. He had an amazing dash. You know, as I compiled those stories and put together, one of the guys is funny to me. He said, I was being what we call IT'd or thrashed, and he responded to Gunny Tritsch as Gunny Trash. And he paid the price. And so, again, his humor, we only got to see that the last week, but his life, it speaks volumes. And what an honor to call him a friend, even this late in my life. And so, if you would, stand with me, and let's raise a glass of milk to Gunnery Sergeant Robert L. Tritsch. Hear, hear. Hear. All right. And this concludes. I guess there are a lot of donuts to eat, so you better get busy.